All right, everybody, get ready, because today we are going deep into the world of human biases.
Ooh, exciting.
We've got this really cool source for our deep dive today. It's called Human Biases, the Good, the Bad, and the Totally WTF.
I love that title.
I know, right? And it is just jam-packed with insights into how our brains work.
Or how they don't work.
Yeah, sometimes not quite how we think.
That's right. All those mental shortcuts.
Yeah, our brains use to process all this information.
And, sometimes those shortcuts, they're really helpful.
They are.
But other times, they kind of lead us down some pretty interesting paths.
They do. It really is such a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got things in there like the IKEA effect. Have you heard of that?
Oh, of course.
Where you, spend hours and hours assembling a piece of furniture.
Right. Exactly.
And it looks like, I don't know, a beaver chewed on it or something.
Right. It's a disaster.
But you're convinced it's a masterpiece.
Because you built it.
Exactly, because you built it.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
It's so true.
Yeah. That's just one example. There's so many.
Oh, there's tons in here.
But before we launch into all the,
The weird.
all the weird and wonderful ways that our biases kind of play out, maybe we should take a step back for a minute and think about where they come from in the first place.
All right, so back to the basics.
Back to the basics.
Take us to school here.
Okay, so imagine you're an early human on the African savanna.
I like where this is going.
You hear a rustle in the bushes.
Uh-oh.
Is it just the wind?
Yay.
Or is it a hungry lion?
I'm thinking lion every time.
Right. And that instinct right there to just assume the worst case scenario.
Right.
That was actually a pretty effective strategy for survival back then.
Makes sense.
And it's actually why a lot of our biases today, they kind of lean towards caution, even if the threat isn't, a literal predator anymore.
Not a saber-toothed tiger anymore, but more like
a deadline.
a deadline, exactly.
Or being late.
Or rush hour traffic.
Yes.
Right. Like that kind of thing.
So you're saying our modern anxieties are basically just our caveman brains freaking out over deadlines and traffic
Pretty much.
instead of saber-toothed tigers?
Yeah, instead of
Wild animals?
actual life or death situations.
Right.
So take for instance the availability heuristic.
A what?
The availability heuristic.
Okay.
This bias, this is a good one. This one makes us overestimate the likelihood of things based on how easily we can recall examples. Right. So let's say you see a news report about a plane crash. Suddenly you're terrified of flying.
Right.
Even though statistically you're way more likely to
get in a car accident.
to get in a car wreck.
Yeah.
But it's that vivid image,
It's
right?
of the plane going down.
It's like our brains are just glued to those news channels.
Right.
That are just constantly playing
Yeah.
a highlight reel of all the worst case scenarios.
Exactly. And it can really warp our perspective.
It can, and it really can warp our perspective.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that statistically more people get hurt in their own homes than pretty much anywhere else.
That's true.
But I still feel safer in my own house than out in public.
And that's totally normal. We have a natural tendency, to feel more secure in familiar environments.
Right.
But it's important to be aware of how that availability heuristic can influence our perception of risk.
Gotcha.
Especially when it comes to making decisions.
So how do we know?
Yeah.
How do we know when our biases are leading us astray?
Oh, that's the tricky part.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to spot our own biases.
Right. But one way to do it is to pay attention to our emotional reactions.
Oh, right.
So if we find ourselves feeling disproportionately afraid or anxious about something, it might be worth asking ourselves,
Yeah.
Is this the availability heuristic
Gotcha.
at play here?
So it's about taking a step back.
Yeah.
Really examining our thought processes before we just jump to a conclusion.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about becoming aware of those mental shortcuts our brain's taking and asking are they serving us well?
Okay.
In this situation.
Well, hold on. Before we go too far down this negativity rabbit hole.
Okay.
Our source points out that not all biases are bad.
Oh, absolutely not.
Right.
In fact, some biases are essential for our well-being, even our success.
No.
Like the optimism bias, for instance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this optimism bias.
Well, think about it. I mean,
without a healthy dose of optimism, do you think our ancestors would have ventured out to explore new territories?
Probably not.
Or invent new tools?
Good point.
Or even just plant crops for the next harvest?
It's like that inherent belief that things are going to work out.
Exactly. Optimism fuels innovation. Creativity.
Yeah.
It even has health benefits.
Wait. So you're saying that believing that things will turn out okay...
It can actually,
can actually make us healthier.
There's evidence to suggest that, that positive outlook can have a positive impact on our physical health, even at a cellular level.
Wow. It's like having a built-in cheerleader in your brain.
Yeah, it's like a little cheerleader in your head.
It just keeps you going. I like it.
Keeps you going, yeah.
Okay, so a little delusion can be good for us.
In some cases, yeah.
All right, I like the side of that. What about confirmation bias?
Oh, confirmation bias.
I feel like that one gets a bad rap.
Right. It does. Confirmation bias is that tendency to favor information that supports our existing beliefs.
Yeah.
And yes, it can definitely lead us down some dangerous paths, especially these days, you know?
With filter bubbles and echo chambers.
Filter bubbles, echo chambers, all that.
Yeah, the internet.
But it also plays a role in helping us to focus our attention and even to develop expertise.
Okay, but wouldn't that also mean that we miss out on potentially groundbreaking ideas?
You're exactly right. And that's
because we're too stuck in our ways.
You're exactly right. That's why it's so important to be aware of it, right? To be aware of confirmation bias and to actively seek out diverse perspectives.
Right, so it's that balance between maintaining your convictions but then also being open to new information.
Yes, exactly.
So a delicate dance.
It is a delicate dance.
Okay, right.
And then there's in-group bias.
In-group bias. What's that?
So in-group bias is this is the tendency to favor people who are part of our own social groups.
Okay.
Now, obviously, this can lead to prejudice and discrimination.
Right.
Which is obviously a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it also plays a vital role in building strong communities.
It makes sense, though, right?
Yeah.
Like our ancestors survived by banding together, protecting their own.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that sense of belonging and loyalty is still so deeply ingrained in us.
It is.
But like you said, we've got to be careful.
Yeah.
Not to let that turn into prejudice.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's about understanding those nuances.
Yeah, it really is.
Of these biases and recognizing that even the ones that can have some negative consequences also have a positive side.
They do.
Okay, so we've talked about the origins of biases.
Yeah.
And how some of them can actually be beneficial.
Right.
But let's get to the juicy stuff.
Okay, let's do it.
What about the biases that really trip us up?
Right.
The ones that lead to bad decisions or awkward moments or just, make us look silly.
Oh, we've got a whole collection of those, and we're going to dive right in.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so let's unpack some of these biases that can really kind of send us down the wrong path.
The ones that make us do things and then we're like, what was I thinking?
Exactly. And one of the sneakiest is anchoring bias.
Anchoring bias.
Well, anchoring bias, it's our tendency to get fixated on the first piece of information we hear, even if it's like totally irrelevant.
Ooh. I think I know this one.
Okay.
Like when you walk into a store, right? You see this giant sale sign.
Yes.
But then you realize, like, the original price was so ridiculously high.
Exactly.
That the discounted price is still like a ripoff.
That's anchoring bias in action.
Okay.
It's that initial number, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's like totally made up.
Right.
It sets this benchmark in our minds, and then we judge everything else against it.
So it's not that we're bad at math.
No.
It's that our brains just latch on to that first number and use it as like a yardstick.
Exactly, even if it's totally warped. Yeah, it's like our brains are playing this game of mental limbo, and that first number, it sets the bar.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Ah, yes, the Dunning-Kruger effect.
I feel like I've heard that one a lot.
Yes, it's a popular one.
Yeah.
This one's a real humdinger.
Okay.
It basically describes how people with low competence in a particular area often overestimate their abilities.
Oh, yeah.
While those who are actually skilled tend to underestimate themselves.
You know that person?
Yes.
Who, like, thinks they're an expert on everything?
Yes, that's the one.
That's Dunning-Kruger, right?
Dunning-Kruger at its finest.
Okay.
It's a classic case of the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Right, which is probably why
exactly
the smartest people I know are also, like, the most humble people.
Exactly, because they're aware of how much
they don't know.
They don't know, exactly.
Okay, so it's a good reminder for all of us to approach, like, new information with a healthy dose of humility.
Absolutely. A little humility goes a long way.
Okay, all right. I'm ready for, like, the really weird stuff.
All right.
What about the biases that just make, like, zero logical sense?
Oh, we've got plenty of those.
Let's go.
Okay, let's talk about the IKEA effect.
The IKEA effect, okay.
So this is that strange phenomenon,
where we overvalue things we've built ourselves.
Right.
Even if the end result is, like, objectively a disaster.
No, I've totally been there.
Oh, I'm sure we all have.
Remember that time I tried to, like, build that bookshelf from scratch?
Yeah.
And it ended up looking like something out of a Dr. Seuss book.
Yeah, but you were so proud of it.
I was so proud of it. I was like, look what I made.
That's the IKEA effect at its finest.
Okay, yeah.
And it's not just about, like, the effort we put in.
Okay.
It's also about, like, the story we tell ourselves.
Right.
We're more likely to forgive, like, the flaws in something we created because we're emotionally invested.
It's like we're trying to convince ourselves that, like, all that time and effort wasn't a total waste.
Exactly. Okay. And that can actually be a good thing sometimes. You know, it can give us this sense of accomplishment.
Right.
It can boost our self-esteem.
Even if the end product isn't perfect.
So it's like a built-in mechanism for self-forgiveness.
I like that. Yeah, a built-in self-forgiveness.
I can get behind that.
Yeah, and then there's hyperbolic discounting.
Hyperbolic what?
Discounting. This one explains why we often choose immediate gratification over larger delayed rewards.
Oh, this is a tough one for me.
I think it's a tough one for a lot of people.
I am such a sucker for instant gratification.
Yeah.
It's like my brain is wired to just prioritize the here and now, even if it means, like, missing out on something better.
Yeah, and you're not alone. It's a deeply ingrained bias.
Oh, okay.
Think about it this way.
Okay.
Would you rather have $100 today or $110 a week from now?
Ooh, that's tough.
It's a tough one, right?
But probably the $100 today.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I could really use a new pair of shoes.
Right. See, that's how our brains work. We're wired.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I get it.
To prioritize those immediate rewards, even if it means sacrificing something, greater down the line.
That's why we procrastinate.
Exactly. It's why we struggle to save money.
Right.
Why we overspend on credit cards.
Like, our brains are stuck in, like, perpetual treat yourself mode.
Yes, exactly. Treat yourself mode.
That's it.
And last but not least, we have
the weirdest one.
The granddaddy of all baffling biases.
Okay.
The placebo effect.
The placebo effect.
So this is where a fake treatment, right? Like a sugar pill can actually produce real physiological changes in people.
What?
Simply because they believe it will work.
Wait, so you're telling me that our beliefs can literally alter our physical reality?
It seems that way.
That's some, like, next level mind over matter stuff.
It really is.
Like, how is that even possible?
It's still a bit of a mystery. But it seems like our expectations and our beliefs, they can actually trigger changes in our brain chemistry.
Wow.
In hormone levels, even our immune system.
So, like, if I believe hard enough that this cup of tea is going to cure my cold, it might actually help.
It's certainly possible.
I mean, I know it's just tea, but what if, like, my belief in its power is enough to activate, like, some sort of self-healing?
That's the idea.
That's wild.
It really is. And it highlights the fact, that our thoughts and beliefs have this profound impact on our health and well-being.
It's why positive thinking.
Exactly. It's why positive thinking and a hopeful outlook can be so powerful.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is all so fascinating.
It is.
But it also makes me wonder, like, are we just puppets to our own biases?
That's a great question.
Like, is there any way to break free from their influence?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about next.
Okay. All right. I'm ready.
Time.
So we've uncovered all these fascinating little quirks of the human mind.
Yeah, our biases.
Our biases, they're like these
invisible forces.
Invisible forces shaping our decisions, even when we think we're being totally logical.
Right.
But can we actually outsmart them?
Well, it's not really about eliminating biases entirely because they're so deeply woven into how we think.
Right.
But we can definitely learn to manage them.
Okay.
Think of it like learning to drive a car.
Okay.
You can't just ignore the laws of physics, right?
Right.
But with practice and awareness, you can navigate the road safely.
Okay, so it's more about like becoming aware of our biases.
Right.
And developing strategies to kind of mitigate their negative effects.
Exactly. And the first step is really just shining a light on them.
Okay.
So for example, let's consider the negativity bias.
Negativity bias, what's that?
So negativity bias, this is that tendency for negative experiences to hit us harder than positive ones.
Oh, yeah.
It's why, like, one critical comment can overshadow a dozen compliments.
Ugh, tell me about it. Like, I can get 5 glowing reviews for, like, my work and still just obsess over that one comment that called me a hack.
That's how it works. It's like our brains are like Velcro for bad news and Teflon for good news.
This is such a good analogy.
But we're not powerless against it.
Okay, go
on. One effective strategy is practicing gratitude.
Gratitude, okay.
Yeah, intentionally focusing on the good things in our lives.
Okay.
Even small things can help rewire our brains to appreciate the positives.
So it's like training our brains to savor those positive moments.
It's exactly.
Instead of just letting them slip away unnoticed.
Instead of letting them slip away, And when it comes to confirmation bias.
Okay, confirmation bias again, that was the one where.
That's the one where we tend to.
Yeah, we seek out information.
Right, to reinforce our existing beliefs.
Yeah, our existing beliefs, okay.
The antidote to that is curiosity.
Curiosity.
Actively seeking out diverse perspectives.
Even the ones that make us,
Even the ones that make us a little uncomfortable can help us break free from those echo chambers and expand our understanding.
I'm starting to realize, that a healthy dose of skepticism can be a good thing.
It can be, yeah.
It's not about constantly questioning everything.
Right.
But just approaching things with a sense of openness.
Yeah, an open mind.
Willingness to consider alternative viewpoints and recognizing that, we don't have all the answers.
Right. We don't know everything.
We don't. And there's always more to learn.
Okay.
Now let's talk about the spotlight effect.
Spotlight effect. This is the one where we think everyone is constantly judging us.
Oh, I know that one.
Right. It's that feeling of like being under a microscope.
Yeah. Like everyone's noticing your every flaw and misstep.
Every misstep.
Yeah, it can be so paralyzing.
It can be, but here's the thing.
Okay.
People are generally far too preoccupied with their own lives to be paying that much attention to us.
Yeah.
Think about it. I mean,
do
you spend your days
No.
analyzing the outfits and behaviors?
Oh, not at all.
Of everyone around you?
No, I'm usually just thinking about my to-do list and what I'm going to eat for dinner. And
Exactly. Most people are in the same boat.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the next time you feel that spotlight effect kicking in, just remind yourself you're probably not as important to other people.
That's good to know.
As your ego wants you to believe.
That is actually very reassuring. It's like giving myself permission.
Exactly.
To just relax and not take myself so seriously.
It's a good practice.
But this makes me think about the impact these biases have on a larger scale.
Right.
Like in society as a whole.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
Our biases, they don't just affect our personal lives.
Right.
They shape our social interactions.
Okay.
Our institutions, even our political systems.
Yeah, I can see that.
And one of the most pervasive and insidious is implicit bias.
Implicit bias. Remind me what that one is again.
So implicit bias, these are unconscious attitudes and stereotypes that influence how we perceive and interact with others, often without us even realizing it.
So even if we consciously believe in equality and fairness, we might still harbor unconscious biases that affect our behavior.
It's possible, yeah.
That's kind of unsettling.
It is, and the research shows that implicit bias can lead to discrimination. In hiring, in education, healthcare, even the criminal justice system.
It's a lot of areas.
It is. It is. But the first step to addressing a problem is acknowledging that it exists. So once we become aware of the potential for implicit bias, we can start to identify our own biases and take steps to mitigate their impact.
So it's about being more mindful.
Absolutely. It's about being more mindful
of our thoughts and actions.
Yes.
Questioning our assumptions about others. Challenging those ingrained stereotypes that we might not even realize we're carrying around.
It's a process. And there are also systemic changes that can be implemented to reduce the impact. Like, for example, some orchestras have started using blind auditions.
Blind auditions, what does that mean?
So this is where musicians perform behind a screen. So their gender and appearance are hidden.
Oh, so judges can only hear
the
music.
Exactly. So it helps to level the playing field.
And reduce bias.
Yes.
That's really creative.
It is. It's a great solution.
It's like removing those unconscious biases from the equation altogether.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Now, another bias that can wreak havoc on groups and organizations is groupthink.
Groupthink.
This occurs when the desire for harmony or conformity within a group.
Yeah, I know that one.
Overrides critical thinking.
Right. It's where everyone just kind of goes along with the crowd.
Yeah.
Even if they have their doubts.
Yeah.
I can see how that could lead to some,
absolutely.
disastrous outcomes.
Yeah, history's full of examples where groupthink has led to catastrophic consequences. Like, think about the Challenger space shuttle disaster. Or the Bay of Pigs invasion.
Yeah, okay. So how do we avoid falling into that trap of groupthink?
So one key to preventing groupthink is fostering a culture that values dissent.
Dissent, okay.
So leaders should actively seek out diverse perspectives, encourage respectful debate, create a safe space for people to voice their concerns without fear of reprisal.
So it's recognizing that disagreement, when it's handled constructively, can actually lead to better solutions.
It can. Diversity of thought is essential for innovation and progress.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, you might be wondering, are there any situations where biases can be used for good?
Oh, that's interesting.
And the answer is yes.
Okay.
A great example is the default effect.
The default effect.
You remember what that is?
Remind me.
It's our tendency to stick with pre-selected options.
Oh, right. Okay.
So think about organ donation. Countries that have an opt-out system where people are automatically enrolled as donors unless they specifically choose not to be, have much higher donation rates than countries with an opt-in system.
That's fascinating.
Isn't it?
So just by changing the default, you can kind of nudge people.
You can nudge people
towards making choices that benefit
themselves, and
that's like giving them a little nudge in the right direction.
Exactly, and this principle can be applied in lots of contexts.
Oh, wow!
From encouraging retirement savings to promoting healthier eating.
It's amazing, how understanding a little bit of human psychology can be used to design systems to make it easier for people.
Exactly.
To make good choices.
That's the idea.
That's really cool.
Another bias that can be used for good is loss aversion.
Loss aversion, that's the one where we
That's the one where
we'd rather avoid a $5 loss than gain $5.
Exactly. It feels more painful to lose something than to gain something of equal value.
Interesting. Okay.
And this principle is used all the time in marketing.
Okay.
Product design. Think about fitness apps.
Yeah.
Fitness apps use loss aversion to motivate users.
Right.
By highlighting the streaks they might lose if they skip a workout.
So it's tapping into that fear of loss.
Tapping into that fear of loss.
To drive
positive behavior.
Okay, I get it. That's interesting.
It's a powerful motivator.
It is. Okay, so we have covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
Exploring, where these biases come from. Their potential for both harm and good.
Right.
And even ways to kind of mitigate their negative effects.
It's amazing how complex our brains are.
It really is.
Capable of both, these amazing feats and these kind of silly missteps.
Right. And it seems like the more we learn about the human brain, the more we realize how much we still don't understand.
Absolutely.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
I'm glad to hear that.
It's like you've given me like this new set of lenses
I like that.
to view the world through and myself.
That's what we're all about here at the Deep Dive.
I love it.
Empowering our listeners to understand the world and themselves.
A little bit better.
A little bit better. Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. All right. So before we wrap up, I got to ask, like, what about those truly baffling biases, like the placebo effect?
Right.
It seems like there's still so much we don't know about.
There is.
How our minds work.
That's a great point. The more we learn, the more we realize, how much there is still to discover.
Right.
It makes you wonder, what other cognitive quirks
what else is out there?
Are lurking in the shadows of our minds just waiting to be uncovered?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
To leave our listeners pondering.
I think so.
All right. So to all you deep divers out there.
Yes.
Keep those minds curious. Stay open to new perspectives.
That's right.
And never underestimate the power and the strangeness of your own beautifully biased brain.
That's a good one.
Until next time, happy diving.